Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today we are continuing my mock trades. And today we're heading out to Minnesota. And shout out to Urban Champ. This guy has been a supporter of the channel, and he loves to throw his Minnesota Wild trade rumors, and some of them are quite wild. So don't attack this guy. He's obviously one of the dudes here at Goal Line Hockey, great guy, and I wanted to throw in his mock trade because we're talking about the Wild today, and I figured why not throw out his mock trade. So he said, imagine this will never happen, but okay, you don't have to say that. This is a channel where we're just speculating, right? There's only so much. Yes, I have certain rumors and links and this and that, but at the end of the day, we have to create some speculation to what could happen. And based off of what we've seen in the past, where could things go? But this is a little far-fetched, but I like where you're going with this. So he says Austin Matthews traded to the Minnesota Wild for Matt Dumba, Matt Boldy, and Kalen Addison. No way that happens, but I would like it. It would be fun, though. It's a fun thought. Yeah, so obviously, shout out to Urban Champ. You are the man, but yeah, that's asking for a lot. I don't think Kyle Dubas and Toronto would be too thrilled with that offer, and Leaf fans would rage. I mean rage. And it's as much as I like Matt Boldy and Kalen Addison and even Matt Dumba to a lesser extent, I think that they are looking for a bigger piece. Like, you're talking about probably, honestly, a Kirill Kaprizov in that deal. And I think that's kind of a starting point, or, that's kind of where you're looking at. So I love the comment there, Urban Champ. I wanted to throw your name out there because you are a huge supporter, but let's get into my other takes. So what we've got here is two trades. I don't think the Minnesota Wild are going to go completely fully in, right? We've seen Bill Guerin take the more conservative approach at the trade deadline. Yeah, he'll make some moves here and there. He brought in Ryan Reeves a couple weeks back. He might make a couple moves here closer to the deadline, but nothing crazy. Now, I do have one trade here that I think could be a big deal because, let's be honest, the lack of center depth for the Wild is a real concern, especially come playoff time. You need guys that can play down the middle, and this is a team that is currently lacking in that department. So here's what I've got. So my first prediction is the Minnesota Wild acquire Bo Horvat. That's right, Bo Horvat from the Vancouver Canucks. And my trade is the Minnesota Wild acquire Bo Horvat. In exchange, they give up this year's first-round pick and defensive prospect Carson Lambos to the Vancouver Canucks. So here's my psychology and the thinking here. So, of course, you don't want to give up a young prospect. That is the one where Minnesota's like, oh, do we have to give that guy up? Listen, I like Carson Lambos as much as anybody else. But there's two factors here. The first one is, well, the real matter is, you've got Kalen Addison. I think Kalen Addison, if I had to choose Kalen Addison or Carson Lambos, I would still rather have Kalen Addison. And I think that with what Wild fans have seen from Addison this year, I think they would agree. So if you want to get a big top six center, you're going to have to pay a price. And you have to remember other teams around the league are going to be giving similar prices. You have to be the one where Vancouver's like, okay, we like that deal the most. Now here's the other thing to consider, right? So the first part is they need to be willing to give up something that's worth anything, right? And Addison is playing well. He's already got 20 points in 36 games as a defenseman. There aren't that many of those around. You might want to keep him around, and I think the Wild are at a point now where, he can help you win now. Where Carson Lambos, yeah, he could help you down the road, but, that's not really what you're thinking about. You want to win this season, and that's why you're making the Bo Horvat trade. Why are you going to take a defenseman who's helping you right now for a forward right now? Why not take an asset for the future to help you now, right? It kind of is part of the psychology and the direction of what the Wild are trying to do. And here's the other big factor, and I just realized this, but it is something to consider. Carson Lambos, has played in Vancouver. And you may be saying, what are you talking about? He played in the WHL, and he played for the Vancouver Giants. So the Canucks have probably seen a game or two or three of Carson Lambos in Vancouver. Now, I'm going to stand corrected. He played for the Winnipeg Ice, so that isn't true. But he has played in the WHL. So this is my reverse rationalizing this. He has played in Vancouver against the Vancouver Giants, right? With the Winnipeg Ice. I forgot he played for the Winnipeg Ice. But he's from Winnipeg, Manitoba. He's from Western Canada. It's a little farther from Vancouver, but the point still remains. And I know that the Canucks have looked at Lambos in the past. There was rumors back in the day when Minnesota was maybe looking at Brock Besser in a deal that they really liked Carson Lambos in a potential trade return. So take with that what you will, but we've heard these rumors before. So Carson Lambos in a first-round pick this year for Bo Horvat. And the hope is that you can sign him long-term. Again, there's no guarantees there, especially if he's asking for $9+ million. But listen, if Minnesota's going for it this year, I would say that's actually not that bad of a package, right? So let me know what you guys think of that one. The other one I've got here is you're bringing in a Minnesota native from a team that has struggled and a player that has struggled. And that is Kiefer Bellows to the Minnesota Wild in exchange for a 5th or 6th or 7th round pick from the Philadelphia Flyers. His value has dropped drastically, but we do remember the fact that this kid is a former first-round pick of the New York Islanders. You know, this is a guy that just really never developed with the Islanders and isn't getting much of a shot with the Flyers. Let's be honest. You know, he's playing on a Flyers team that is just not good at all. And yeah, he isn't very good without the puck, and that's been some of the concern with him. But let the Minnesota Wild at least give him a shot. You know, you're not giving up. Instead of trading both your first and second round picks for 2 superstar players at the deadline, why not pick up a native from Minnesota? He's from Edina. You know, talk about a Minnesota native. I mean, he's from frickin' Edina. He deserves to have an opportunity to play in Minnesota. Even if he's a guy that's on the scratch pad and maybe gets a shot come playoff time if there's some depth injuries, Kiefer Bellows can step in. And I think there's a guy that, if given an opportunity, can succeed, you know, in a depth role for the Minnesota Wild. And I think as a guy that, why not take a waiver on him, right? His contract isn't the best and something that I think the Islanders tried to rid themselves of. And, you know, maybe the Flyers retain a little bit of that very low salary, but it might be the difference for the Wild here in maybe acquiring him. But let me know what Urban Champ and all the Minnesota Wild fans, what do you guys think of potentially Bo Horvat and Kiefer Bellows coming in? Because I think that you look at the grand scheme of things, you know, it's expensive. You know, it's a first-round pick, Carson Lambos, and a middle-round draft pick for Kiefer Bellows and Bo Horvat, 2 guys that might not be here past this season. But that might be a good thing because it gives you the flexibility if they don't play well with your team. Okay, you know, it's one of those things where, okay, so you gave up those assets, but is it better than, you know, JT Miller and the Vancouver Canucks are a perfect example. You know, they got a really good trade for JT Miller at the time, but now they just signed him to that mega contract that hasn't even kicked in yet. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, JT Miller is now a detriment to our franchise. So it might be one of those things where it could be a blessing in disguise not signing some of these guys if it doesn't work out. So yeah, you have to be willing to take that chance, but if it means keeping Kalen Addison long term, again, his contract ends this summer. Okay, so maybe you give up Bo Horvat this summer and some of these other guys, but you ensure some of your younger guys stay long term. I think the Minnesota Wild would be kind of willing to do that. And not to mention, you know, Damien Giroux. I think that's the really only one that I'm looking at here other than Kalen Addison that is really the guy I'd be concerned about. Yeah, I mean, if they decide to keep Matt Dumba, Kalen Addison, Sam Steele, Connor Dewar is a year away from free agency. Freddie Gaudreau, Ryan Reeves, but that money's going to come off. So the Minnesota Wild have some flexibility. But let me know what you guys think down below. What do you guys think of the Minnesota Wild? Do you like what I thought of the Minnesota Wild going into the deadline? Of course, leave your thoughts down below and some mock trades. And as always, thank you so much for watching this video, and let's go Wild.